Welcome to today's Explainer. We're doing something a little different this time. We are stepping into the role of economic auditors, opening up the ledger of capitalism for a strict, completely unbiased review. We're going to put one of the world's oldest economic systems directly under the microscope, and we'll be weighing its most celebrated triumphs right alongside its heaviest, most criticized trash.
Okay, let's dive right into our agenda for this two-act debate. We'll start with the economic audit, move into Act 1, covering the triumphs and automatic efficiency. Then we'll pivot to Act 2 to examine the trash, waste, and monopoly before finally delivering our final verdict.
Section 1, the economic audit, examining the ledger.
So to really anchor this audit, we've got to understand the core engine driving economies like the USA, the UK, and France. Capitalism is defined by productive resources that are owned by private individuals, and their primary overriding goal is to earn a profit. State intervention is kept to an absolute minimum, meaning activities are mostly unplanned and uncoordinated. It's a true laissez-faire economy. Now, I want you to keep this exact lack of coordination in mind, because it's actually the source of both its greatest successes and its deepest flaws.
Act 1, the triumphs, the spirit of enterprise.
At the absolute heart of these triumphs is what's called the spirit of enterprise. Think of the relentless pursuit of profit as this massive psychological force. It infuses individuals with the willingness to take huge risks and sparks raw entrepreneurial ability. Just to survive the fierce competition out there, producers are practically forced to invent new, improved production techniques. So it's an undeniable, incredibly powerful engine for rapid technological progress.
Let's look at how this plays out on a human level. The system is a harsh but highly effective judge. Efficient individuals, whether they are producers squeezing maximum potential out of their resources or workers giving peak performance, are heavily rewarded with high profits and wages. But inefficiency, that gets strictly and rapidly penalized by the free market. This constant, relentless pressure ensures that resources are squeezed for their absolute maximum potential.
Ultimately, this incentive, driven by private property and the right of inheritance, spurs massive capital formation, and that leads directly to booming standards of living. Countries that really leaned into this model, like the USA, the UK, and Japan, have experienced explosive economic growth. They've transitioned into affluent economies filled with new consumer goods, luxuries, and increased leisure time, eventually expanding outward into global free trade and vast international economic interaction.
Act 1, automatic efficiency, the invisible hand.
Now, you might be wondering, how on earth does all this happen without some giant central planning agency pulling the strings? Well, every economy faces three core problems: what to produce, how to produce it, and for whom. In capitalism, the impersonal, automatic forces of demand and supply, the price mechanism, they solve these steps seamlessly. This dynamic effortlessly determines how available resources are used, coordinating incredibly complex economic activities entirely on its own. It's pretty brilliant when you think about it.
But here is where our debate has to pivot. The exact same profit motive that drives that brilliant resource allocation can just as easily lead to severe misallocation. We have to face a harsh reality here. The market will often eagerly produce luxury goods over basic necessities simply because those luxury goods yield a significantly higher profit.
Act 2, the trash, inequality and instability.
It is time to flip the ledger and examine the dark side. The most glaring demerit is acute inequality. Because of the heavy concentration of productive forces and inheritance, we end up witnessing multi-storied skyscrapers standing right alongside impoverished slums. And this stark divide inherently breeds class struggle. It creates constant hostility between capitalists and workers that regularly and physically disrupts the economy through strikes and lockouts. Furthermore, remember that uncoordinated nature we were praising just a minute ago? Well, without a central agency, the system is notoriously prone to violent instability. An economic boom in one year can quickly trigger severe overproduction the very next, and soon after that crashes into a depression, resulting in widespread unemployment. We have to remember, these aren't just data fluctuations on a chart. They represent immense human misery, anxiety, and real societal suffering. Because the wealthiest individuals hold the vast majority of purchasing power, producers are naturally going to chase their money. Production shifts heavily towards luxuries and comforts. The direct consequence of this is that basic necessities for the wider society are entirely neglected. From a societal viewpoint, this allocation of resources isn't just inefficient, it's highly undesirable and structurally exclusionary for a massive chunk of the population.
Act 2, waste and monopoly, the cost of competition.
Now, what's really interesting about this next point is that capitalism's famously celebrated efficiency actually generates some shocking wastes. Perfectly valid working techniques are discarded simply due to the pressure of new competitive discoveries. Consumers are pushed to trash totally usable goods, like cars, merely to chase the newest status symbol. Add in the millions spent on excessive advertising, which are costs pushed directly onto you, the consumer, by the way, and you get the deep irony that cutthroat rivalry often leaves massive plant capacity heavily underutilized.
And what happens when that cutthroat competition reaches its logical extreme? Monopoly power. The free market increasingly becomes dominated by giant monopolists who deliberately restrict output and charge higher prices to actively exploit consumers. This results in a dangerous concentration of both economic and political power in the hands of a tiny, elite minority.
This relentless obsession with profit also builds into a complete neglect of social welfare. A purely free market frankly ignores the bigger picture. Profit-maximizing firms happily ignore negative externalities, like dumping toxic pollution right into the environment, which obviously degrades our overall living standards. Simultaneously, the market severely underprovides positive goods like public health, transport, and education. Without some form of intervention, the system completely fails to protect these vital public goods.
The final verdict: weighing the ledger.
As we reach the end of our economic audit, we really have to look at the ultimate cost to society. Our source material provides this incredibly powerful, sobering summary. In this system, a man's worth and his success in life is judged by his economic success, and this has resulted in the subordination of human, social, moral, religious, and cultural values. The pure domination of economic values risks crushing literally all other human values, which leads to deep personal and familial problems.
Which leaves us with this final, provocative question to end our explainer today. We've seen the rapid growth and the technological marvels of Act 1, and we've weighed them against the stark inequalities and the wasted resources of Act 2. So does the sheer incredible engine of capitalist triumph actually justify the heavy, undeniable toll of its trash? Thank you so much for joining me on this rigorous audit, and I highly encourage you to keep questioning the systems operating all around you.